So today, you've got us regulars, Dan Conger, National Training Manager, Chris Wright, VP of Sales, and myself, RSM for the Northeast. And we're going to kick off today going into Base Manager. And I'll preface this by saying there's going to be some of you on the call that we might already call power users, and we enjoy having you on here. And perhaps instead of asking a question, you might put into the Q&A or into the chat some things that you find, they're tips that you use in your daily Base Manager activity instead of a question if you are a power user. We have only 30 minutes, so we're going to cover not every detail and hopefully provide you with some value from our position as we use Base Manager to help all of our customers. So I'm going to get started by sharing my screen and giving a brief overview of the specific project that we're going to bring up in Base Manager. So let me kick this off here. And the project that we're going to look at in Base Manager is the Boston Public Garden, which was installed by Tommy of Cambridge Landscape 2 years ago. And the reason that we wanted to use this project was because we've got a lot of zones under management, and it was also a large retrofit project, and we're seeing more and more retrofit type projects. And we're going to just show you a couple pictures of the Boston Public Garden. It's very historic, one of the first, actually maybe the first public park in the United States, right in the heart of Boston. Sort of Boston's version of Central Park. Park was founded in 1837, and as I was preparing for this, a quick little history tidbit that the town of Boston was established here, you can see in 1630, and then reincorporated in 1822 as a city of Boston. So lots of history here. On this project, there's lots of moisture sensors. This is a picture of digging in a moisture sensor and connecting it to the closest valve box so that we can communicate back to the controller.
Some good dirt.
A picture of the sensor installed. And next week, we're going to be going into how to use soil moisture sensors. So this is a little bit of a lead into next week. And here we have a picture of the existing control setup. This may look familiar for many of you. There are a lot of these instances out there in the world. There was 4 controllers and 1 water source. I've circled the letters of each controller because we'll touch on this later in the naming structure of the zones. So we have a controller A, B, C, and D. And with only 1 water source, you can imagine the types of programming concerns that they had with scheduling these controllers to run at different days of the week and such in order to maximize both the hydraulics and the schedules. And then what we did is we worked with Cambridge and we built a custom cabinet solution. So here you can see Rock in manufacturing, birthing the controller, which is a technical term that we use in-house. Every controller does get a birth certificate. And you can see banks of 24 station boards. So we have a 24 station, 48, and so on, all down through the controller. So we're able to take what was 140 some odd zones across 4 controllers and then custom build them into one baseline solution. With the final result that looks like this, on the left, you'll see inside Cambridge Landscape's shop. They custom fabricated this onto a stainless steel backboard and then put a junction box underneath. And on the right-hand side, you can see the final install, which is all the field wiring, color-coded per existing controller, really neatly tied up inside this unit. So we're using this project because it's a custom retrofit solution, which there's a lot out there. And it's Tommy's fully utilizing Base Manager.
Shout out to Tommy for some
job too.
I know, that's some cable management. Beautiful.
Yeah, it's got to be one of the best. So cheers to Tommy and Friends of the Common for supporting Baseline and Cambridge Landscape in this effort. So now we're going to switch my screen and jump over to Base Manager. Give me just a moment here. Okay. So the Base Manager is an application that lives inside what we call Baseline Apps or App Manager, which is a framework that houses the current version of Base Manager as well as a number of other applications. Base Manager is used directly from any browser window, whether that's on a PC, a Mac, a Chromebook, an iPhone, an Android. You log in at baselineapps.net, and when you log in, on the left-hand side, you see a list of the current apps. So today, we're going to focus our attention on Base Manager because this is the application that is used for both of our platforms, the 3200 and the 1000. Some of the other applications are exclusive to the 3200 platform, which would be Pipeview, Flow Stations. And so we're going to save that for another webinar and today focus on Base Manager, which is the application that we all use regularly to manage both 1000s and 3200s.
Hey, Andy, I've got a question that came in that's relevant with that controller at Boston Commons. How is it connected to a network for Base Manager?
That is a good question. So that particular controller that we're going to look at here is connected via cellular. And we offer a couple different ways to connect with a hardwired Ethernet, using Wi-Fi, or using cellular. And at this location, cellular made sense because it was a remote maintenance building that didn't have direct connect wire running into it. So we're using a cellular application. Okay. Good question. So when we log into Base Manager, and again, if any of you are power users and want to add input, please do so. Tommy at Cambridge has done a great job utilizing his maps. So you'll see here, we've got 3 different sites that are all under Cambridge Landscape Management. We're looking at what might be 20,000 foot view of Boston. And right from the map, you can click on the pin. You can also access the controller through the drop-down menu of sites and controllers, and then you can pick your site and your controller. For this instance, because Tommy has set up the maps nicely, we're going to go directly into the project using the maps. So when you click on the site pin, you can access the controller. If there were multiple controllers on this project, you would see all the controllers. And then you can click the controller pin, which is marked as C, and go down directly to the controller. Okay, so from here, you can see all the pins are green, a couple are red, and one is orange. The pins all change color based on zone status. And for some of you new users, the zone status color key is a reminder that we place here in the menu. You can always refer to it here under status colors, and you can see the full list of the colors that display on the map pins and in Quick View that we will review in just a moment. From the map, you can click on zone pins. You can see all the information about the zone number, the name of the zone, the current status, any notes that are on it, the program it's in, the runtime, and what mainline it's associated with. One of the nice things about maps is we find that end users really like the maps. A lot of end users don't know the names of all 126 zones, like irrigation contractors remember that. And so if you are a contractor and you're on this call, we do find that end users really like the maps, and it's something that provides a lot of value and is often forgotten about when it comes to setup. So please take advantage of using the maps. And if you have questions, feel free to pop them in, and Chris, you can stop me as we move along. So from the maps, we're going to move over to really the most popular tab, the one that we use the most, which is called Quick View. Quick View gives us basically a full snapshot of everything on our system. So today what we're going to do is just start on the top left. We see what's called zone status. And this is a list in block form, which resembles our 3200 controller layout of all of our zones. So we can quickly see that we have 141 zones, all of which are green or status good, and 3 of which are currently red. Red is an indication of a message on the zone. And the messages are displayed here under the message list. So for instance, we can look here at zone 24. And it says that there's an open circuit solenoid. So on zone 24, we do have an issue with the solenoid. Not going to go into the weeds on this, but an issue with the solenoid could be, in fact, the solenoid itself, or it could be the wiring, but it's an issue with the solenoid. And it looks like all three of these issues relate to solenoid. And again, because it's the beginning of the season and the system hasn't really been started up, electrical problems are fairly common and sometimes easy to fix, not always.
It sounds like a good thing to do at spring startup is to investigate those messages before you just get everything started.
Absolutely.
Hey,
then from
Andy,
the zones,
I've got a question here.
Okay.
Is it possible to get those messages when you're not logged into Base Manager?
Yes, great question. The two other ways to get the messages would be via email or via text message. Yep. So those settings are inside the admin. So you want to make sure your email is configured or your text message and that you are subscribed to the alerts. Which again, we won't cover those specifics on this call, but if you have any questions about how to set that up, feel free to contact our support and we'll make sure that your account is configured to get the messages. So as I showed you on the map view, you can click zones and get the status. You can do the same thing from quick view. Start the zone, stop the zone, test the zone, see any notes that are associated with it, the program it's in, the runtime, and the main line. And then moving down, we've got our program view. So again, you can click on a program and you can get a list of every zone that's in that program. It's a really quick and easy way to get the full run list that are in each program, as well as the status. So again, these are gray. Gray is disabled. So these programs are currently turned off or disabled. And then as we scroll down, we've got control points, mainline, and water sources. This site has one. That's why we see one listed. And again, you can get the full information directly by clicking on the box. Okay. And then in QuickView, you also have a list of all the physical hardware devices that are attached to the system, i.e. moisture sensors. Tommy's got these nicely labeled, which we'll cover in just a moment. And we can read the current temperature on the right and the current moisture in the middle. And this is, again, a great way to see when your plants or your grass may start to come awake again in the spring by reading the soil temperature. And then next week, as I mentioned, we'll go into more detail on how to read moisture data, what to do with the moisture data, etc. Then you've got your flow meters, temperature sensors if you had any, the vent switches if you had any, pressure sensors, and weather stations. So I'll briefly mention that you can connect any weather station that is on the W Underground network to Base Manager at no extra charge. Comes with your subscription. So here at the Public Garden, they've linked in the weather station that's at Boston College nearby. And again, you can use this information that we'll cover next week to automate your system or just to have the data. If you want to see what the current temperature, humidity, wind speed is, you can link directly to the weather station, which is a really handy feature. Okay, any questions on QuickView? Feel free to just type them in as we move along.
Yeah, we've got a few. I've answered some privately as they've come in. One is it possible to make changes to runtimes or program associations, etc., when you receive messages through email or text message?
Right, so you want to think of the messages that come to you as it's a message. To make any changes, you're going to log into Base Manager to make those changes. Mm-hmm. So how are we doing on time? 1:15. Okay, so let's jump into naming devices. So one of the things that is often either missed, forgotten about, or just folks don't have the time to do it, is naming their devices. So I wanted to show you this list inside the controller of all 141 zones and how Tommy has put a name on every zone or a description. And if you remember, when we covered the picture of those 4 existing Hunter controllers, they were labeled A, B, C, and D. In this process, what Tommy did was put the name of the old zone in the description of the new zone, because the old controller, the old site had 4 of the same controller. So essentially it had 4 zone 24s. So controller A became zone 1. And then as you move through the zone list, on zone 38, we move to controller B. So this is a great way to sort of take the zone numbers that were on the old controller and convert them to the new controller, as well as put an identification on that zone. Like here where we see B1, that was old terminal 1 on the B controller, which was I-25's full sun turf. There's 2 ways to enter a description. One way is to do it one by one here in the device screen. And I'm going to show you real quick. Open it up, click edit, and then you can type in any name of your choice. And again, while we're in here, if we were using ET-based watering, you would also enter all of the zone information that's required for ET-based watering.
Andy, I thought.
Yeah.
Oh, question for you, Andy, on those. So once you save the name here on Base Manager, that gets pushed out to the controller, right?
It does. It does.
Yeah.
That's another great thought, Dan. When you're in the controller, you can see the names. And so when you're programming, either running your zones manually or programming them, it sometimes is really handy, especially if you have 141 zones, to know which zone you're actually programming.
All of it's better than
Absolutely.
zone 47.
Absolutely. And another good use case is mobile access. So when you're out there with your phone or your tablet and you're using mobile access to operate zones, it's really nice to know which zone you're firing. Because again, not everyone can remember all 141 zones and where they're located. I know some of you listening can do it, which is amazing. But we're trying to make it easy and allow you to name zones. Again, all your devices can be named. So we'll take a look at moisture sensors next. And one tip that I want to share with you guys is when you name your sensors, it's very handy to, or almost critical, to put the zone number that your sensor is buried in. So in this case, it's labeled as spray full sun, and then the key here is zone 29. So I'm going to show you a report that I like to use that I think you guys will find valuable. And we have to know where that sensor is buried. And the best way to do it is to put it right in the name. This is this sensor is buried in zone C29. Okay, so naming devices is really critical. Definitely helps when it comes to programming.
Hey, Andy, got a question that's relevant.
Okay.
About moisture sensors again. Jesse Ealing wants to know the difference between moisture sensor with temp reading and just regular temp sensor.
Okay. So if I understand the question correctly, inside of our moisture sensor, you've got the blade and then you've got the black decoder portion. In the black decoder portion is a temperature sensor. So every soil moisture sensor will read temperature. You can also purchase separately called a black decoder that is a temperature only sensor. So I don't know, Jesse, if that's exactly what you're asking, but we sell a temperature sensor only, and you can read temperature through the moisture sensor.
So you get
2 ways to read temperature.
Ground temperature and or air temperature, depending on which reading you are wanting.
Correct.
Okay.
Good. So let's transition to looking at a couple reports. And I'm oftentimes helping end users, contractors, distributors, supporting their controllers. And the report that I sort of turn to the most to see how things are going on a site or take a look at the watering is called the Zone Runtime Report. And what the Zone Runtime Report lets us look at is both runtime and moisture data on the same graph, if you will. So let's take a look. The first thing to do, let me repeat that, is when you bring up the report, it is typically just the most recent set of data. And you're going to go up to the right and you're going to click the gear. And this lets you modify the devices and the view that you're looking at. So in this case, what we're going to look at is both a zone and a moisture sensor. So let's grab this one that we were looking at before, zone C29. And then because we have the zone labeled in the moisture sensor, we can also select that specific zone that is watering this sensor. So we're going to go down our list. We're going to find zone C29, which is actually zone 100, but it's the C29 label. The next thing we can choose is an interval. This would be the amount of time or period that you want to display. I typically start with 1 month, so I can look at a bigger period of data. And then if need be, you can dial into a shorter period of time, like 2 weeks or 7 days. And then you can choose a date range. So here we are in April. Of course, the system's off. There's really nothing to look at. So you start with your end date. And I'm going to go backwards and look, let's just say month of August, because we know typically in August we water. So I'm going to choose August 31st. And just as a reminder, I chose a 30-day period, 1 month. So by picking the end date, it will go 30 days before and give us that window to look at, again, the zone and the moisture data. And then I'll click run. Okay, so now we're seeing the moisture and the run times. And the focus of today is to show you how to access these reports. Next week, we're going to speak specifically to what this information means. Not going to do that today, but you can see here we have sort of a depletion of water, a spike in moisture, 20 minutes of runtime, and there's a lot of information that you can gain by looking at this specific report. The second report I want to show you, because it's asked a lot, is the flow meter total. So again, you choose the report, you go up to the gear, you choose the interval, let's say 1 month again, and let's go back to the month of August. And we can see the flow meter totals for that month. And this is showing this to us daily. So we can see the total is 1.8 million gallons for the month of August. And then by hovering over each specific day, you can see your flow meter total for that specific day. How are we doing on time? Pretty good. A couple minutes here before we'll take questions. So those are a couple of the reports. We covered naming devices. We're going to skip over flow because that gets really technical, but this is where you can enter all of the flow setup to get your system hydraulically optimized. And then I want to point out Live View. Live View is allows you to access the screen of the controller as if you were standing there. So if you're comfortable programming the controller this way, you can absolutely do it. The other awesome piece is that if you're on site and you're in front of the controller and you call our support team, they can walk you through the programming steps on the controller while you're there, walk you through the screens and coach you on properly programming the controller. So LiveView is an awesome support tool for us. So I think with that, I'm going to end the Base Manager screen share, and then 3 of us will jump back on and answer any questions that you guys have.
Yeah.
All right, very good. Got one couple regarding subscription costs. What is the subscription cost for Base Manager Web, and how many controllers can you have on a subscription?
Okay. Base Manager is a yearly subscription of $199. Chris, you can speak to this. I don't believe there's a maximum. If you'd like to have 10,000 controllers under subscription, we'd love to have it. I will point out that the subscription does cover cellular fees. So if you're using a cellular device, that is included with the subscription cost.
Yeah.
Correct. Yeah. And on a subscription, on an account, there is not a limit as to the number of controllers you can have.
There's a question I saw that I think was worth it is the reports, are they only looking on the screen, or can we export them and bring them outside of Base Manager?
That's great. There was 2 buttons. So if you remember where I showed you how to access the gear in the top right, next to that, there was a button for a CSV, comma separated value, which will allow you to dump that to something that can be accessed in Microsoft Excel. And there was also a quick PDF print button. So you can easily drop that to PDF and send it to your client.
Beautiful. Nice. Okay. Ooh, here's one. This is one that I've heard a couple of times. Steve asks, our current landscaper controls our Base Manager system. How would us as the building owner gain control over it if we ever decided to change landscaper? So I think I'm going to summarize that. Who owns the Base Manager account?
Typically, that would be the person who owns the controller.
It's I think that's
or the person that pays the subscription amount and the renewal cost for that subscription.
Right. And
yeah. And we do see this both ways. So I'll comment that we see contractors or service providers who pay the bill and invoice the end user, and the end user is added to their account. We also see end users that own the account and add contractors under their parent account, and it can go either way, and we can easily switch between the two. So if you're an end user and you're on this call and your account is in your contractor's name, it can be switched, and it can go both ways rather easily.
Okay. What happens if the controller is not communicating and the information that you will see or view once it reconnects?
So the controller, once it connects to Base Manager will have all of that data available, but sometimes it can take time to pump that data from the controller up to the cloud. So if you're connecting the controller for the first time and it's been offline for quite a while, don't expect all of the historical data to be in the cloud right away. It can take time to, like I said, pump all that data from the controller up to the cloud.
Okay, very good. And then one last one from Brian up in Calgary, or Lethbridge likely. To name each device, do you need to manually edit each device, or is there a faster way to edit multiple devices at once?
Yeah, you can edit all the devices at once. You're going to do that in the Assign tab. I did not demo that because when you access that particular view, what it does is it runs a full search on the controller. So depending on how many devices are connected to the controller, it can take 1 to 5 minutes to pull all that information in. And once it's in, then you'll see sort of a list view of all of your devices, and you can name them all in one screen.
And at that point, also, you see all the serial numbers associated with the decoders, correct?
Right.
That too, yes.
You can use that for troubleshooting purposes, Mr. Williams, in that Assign by coders screen in devices.
Yeah, and be patient. Depending on, like I said, how many zones you have attached, it can take some time, and you'll see status updates during that process while it's running the search and pulling in the devices. And that, I believe, is unique to Baseline, right, Chris? We were just talking about this not too long ago. The capability of not only searching and polling and changing decoder addresses, but also doing that through the web interface.
Yep. Yeah, because that two-way communication that we have on our two-wire protocol, we're able to send commands from controller to field and then retrieve information from devices in field and bring it back to the controller without having to have that device physically plugged into the controller for assignment or reassignment, for that matter.
Yeah.
Awesome. Very good. Well, that's our half hour, gentlemen.
Yep. Note it, like Dan said, so you can submit for your IA CEUs.
Yep.
If there's an audit, we know who came and we know how long you stayed on.
That's true. That's true. Later on today, I will have this up on YouTube. So if you missed it or you want to come and revisit us and watch our beautiful faces again, YouTube.
Yep. And next week, not only will we be getting in the weeds, but we'll be getting in the soil and talking about soil moisture sensors and how to optimize them. So if you want to get dirty, join us next week.
Awesome. Very good. Thanks for everybody's participation.
Yeah.
Have a great week. Stay safe, and we'll see you next Tuesday.
All right.
Appreciate y'all. Take care.
See ya.